Have sound. There we go. Now I've got sound. This is what happens when you reset everything up the day before. So everyone, hello and welcome. This time around you should be fine. I assume you can hear me okay now. It's been a very fun week. Obviously, many of you know we've just had the major, during which a certain Seth Super Hoffman announced that he would be retiring from being a player. That was announced before. And I believe it was last night, Super, it came out that you are moving into the general manager position. So first and foremost, how are you today?
I think I was muted too. Not too shabby.
That
A
was
little early for me.
I
A
was
little late for you, but
it's okay. It's okay. It's 6 p.m. here. I'm good. I always say CEST because there's more that watch from Europe than do strictly from the UK. So I always try to go in European time, which is an hour ahead. So I'm good at the minute. Hungry, but dinner will come after. So it's all good. I'm really disappointed, by the way, that you didn't roll out the line that you gave me when I asked you before the show how you doing.
to be honest, you caught me a little off guard, so I just had to go with it.
Can we do it again? Can we do it again?
Like, all right.
Can we do it again so you say the answer? Okay, then cool. Seth, how are you today?
I'm super.
Get it. It's a terrible joke, but it works every single time. Well, look, Seth, really appreciate you coming on to talk to us. I'm sure people in chat will have a bunch of questions as well as we go through the show around Soniqs and so on, but I've already got a lot of those listed down. As a starting point, let's go through the pieces that you and I spoke about a little bit yesterday. Berlin, talk to me. How was it? How did you find coming over to Europe? Did you have a good time? You can be very honest.
No.
Don't worry. Ubisoft aren't listening.
No. The flight was fine because I paid to upgrade my own flight, so it cost me money. I had like one of those like lay down beds, so that was nice. Even though I don't sleep, it was more of just like
first class. Damn.
I need the status of it, you know. I wasn't necessarily like I don't sleep on planes because I'm like super paranoid about turbulence, but you know, it's the status of my legs were just out and nobody could stop me, just all the way out. And then we got to Germany and it was like I took a first class trip to hell. Is how I would
Why?
put it.
What was so bad about it?
Well, it's 2022, and apparently in Germany, air conditioning hasn't been invented yet. And somehow I have like this bad luck thing where all my shit will just randomly break. So the progressively as it got hotter and hotter, and I got more pissed off and more pissed off, things just started breaking. So it's certainly, I would say it's an event to remember, but maybe not for good reasons.
Right, I see. It's interesting in Europe how some countries are really good with AC, like France, when we say they're for EU, are great with it, but the UK, no longer in the EU, lol, sucks at it anyway. Germany was a little bit hit and miss as we went across different restaurants there and stuff, right? And the Monday was probably one of my worst tournament experience days ever. It was just so hot. I can't imagine how it was for you guys in the practice rooms as well, because teams were saying they had AC in there, but it was still like 40 degrees once you got 5 players in there and 5 PCs running, right?
Well, so they gave you like a little AC, but to use the AC, the window had to be open. And so they had kind of this cover that they would put over the window, but the cover we had was broken.
Brilliant.
So it wasn't covering anything. It was just like the air would come out of the air conditioner and just go right out through the window. So
and then straight back in again and make it even hotter,
I guess. Yeah.
Honestly, brilliant. Well, outside of that, what about the Soniqs themselves? What about your experience there as a team? Let's talk more about the games rather than the sweating to death that you guys had. It was a rough tournament for you guys. It feels like it's been a bit of a challenge to get back to the form that we saw from you guys throughout last year. You know, what wasn't going so well this event?
Interestingly enough, I don't even really think it's like we're not in form. I think at that tournament we definitely did not play well. Just a couple matches that come to mind. The first match against G2, we had a 5-1 lead that we couldn't close out. Against Sandbox Gaming, when we played them on Oregon the first time, I think we got clutched on 4 rounds in a row, I want to say. So like if we win both of those games, that's 6 points, and we had 5. So it's a completely different tournament for us if we actually can close the games out. But the truth is we didn't deserve to do well. We didn't play well enough. You know, I know Sandbox made some changes, but that's a team that at Invite we beat 7-0, 7-2. And we couldn't even You know, we didn't even get a game off of them here. So, and I don't think they were like anything necessarily improved like crazy. So it just came down to we didn't really play that well. And obviously, you know, all of the teams at the majors, regardless of how you rate them as, you know, a top team or a low team, like they're the best teams for a reason. They're there. So if you're not playing your best, those are teams that will punish you. And that, I think that's just what happened to us. We didn't show up and the other teams took advantage of that. And, you know, we were sent home. The thing that's potentially interesting for me is we kind of have this history now of, in these group best of ones, we seemingly struggle. But when we've played best of 3 tournaments, which is NAL finals and invite, we obviously have done really well in those. So I kind of wonder if it's like a little bit of a mental block going into like best of ones and groups and stuff. Cause I think for best of 3s, we obviously like match up pretty well.
Yeah.
But that's just something like the team will have to, you know, deal with as it goes on. Cause eventually we have to make it out of fucking groups if we're going to be doing anything.
Very true. And I guess on that subject, is that becoming down to a matter of prep, do you think? Do you guys really thrive best when you can properly prep for a best of 3, or is it something else?
No, so the way that I believe in operating, we don't counter strat anybody. We don't really, you know, as far as prep goes for us, it's going to be knowing what maps we're playing and what's likely going to be banned. But I don't believe in counter stratting, because like, what if you, because like, let's say the other team wants to counter strat you and you change all your stuff for them, and then all of a sudden all their stuff's different because they changed it for you. You may as well be doing what you're comfortable with rather than, you know, trying to reinvent the wheel and then not even knowing that it's going to translate. Like, there are some teams like maybe old school Empire where you pretty much know everything they're going to do. It's just if you can stop them. But a lot of the teams, like, especially with the way the game is now, it's it's too hard to counter, I think, because everything is just unpredictable. It's all just, you know, running around, a lot of that kind of thing.
I do want to come on to that in a minute, but I did get a question come in from Joe R6 in the chat who said, what do you think about G2 after you played them? I said coming into the competition, like we were doing all the caster rotations and that. And I said to, like, normally most events, I'll make the rotation. I'll jump in and go, right, I want that game. I want that game, for example. And I was quite fortunate that we gave it to Dev and Mandy to pick their games first, given it was their first major. But then I think it was Parker and Pengu came in and they didn't pick that game. And I was like, right, I want that game. And even Emmy was like, yeah, I left it blank because I knew you'd really want to cast it just for the beef. Like, you've had a lot of back and forth with Alamau. We've had Shaz pop up and have a few little words as well. Did it feel like a real rivalry going into that game? Like, did it mean any more than the other games you played in the group?
I mean, truthfully, I don't give a shit about G2. Like, I understand why they would be like not big fans of me, but for me, I am a streamer. Well, you know, I'm not necessarily a full-time streamer, but I stream a lot. I watch the games. If I'm just sitting there being like, "Oh, that was a good play. That was a bad play. Wow." Like, nobody wants to watch. So I think I'm a pretty funny guy on my stream. When you're watching me, I'm going to be funny. I'm going to ham it up. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to be entertaining. That's why a decent amount of people want to watch me. If I was just sitting there like looking at everything how I do as if I were, you know, a player or a coach, it would be a lot less boring. Yeah. So I understand why, you know, some people may take things like that personal. And I think NA at this point, like, I'm actually pretty good friends with the majority of NA. I don't really feel like I have any beef with like any of them, even some of the guys I used to, because they have come to understand that what I'm saying on stream, it's literally for stream. You know, I don't have a problem with anybody. I'm not, most of the time, like, some of the stuff I'm saying isn't necessarily even correct. It's just funny. Yeah. And obviously G2 took it a different way, and that's fine. But the truth is, like, I don't give a shit about them. It didn't mean anything. It didn't, like, the only rivalry I would say we have is OXG, and they're not that.
They're not what? They're not bad, did you say? Or they're not that?
They're not OXG.
Oh, I see. That's what you mean. It's kind of a shame. I half expected you to come on here and go, yeah, you know what? Those guys were dog shit. I'm glad I said it. You know, we didn't play well, so imagine how good they could have been. But you've come on here and been very... Is it a thing of the retiring side of things now where the B starts to drop, or what do you think? Do you think that carries on now? Now you're a GM, you're still doing the streaming and shit talking, because why not? I think like one thing we always said about Fabian was it was really good having a villain in the scene. You need those kind of characters in the scene, and you sort of made that for NA, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, obviously I became I would say, I don't know if I would say popular, but like a pretty polarizing figure in the scene. Um and it got me a charm, so no complaints there. But um yeah, I mean, I'm not, the way I am is, in my opinion, I'm going to say what I think is the truth most of the time, unless it's just like completely out there.
Mm.
And sometimes you'll disagree with it, sometimes you won't, but I'm not going to sit there and be like, yeah, G2 sucks when they beat us. Like, we didn't play well. I think if we played how we normally do, we probably beat them, but they're certainly not a bad team. You know, people called them like a super team heading into the year, and they're still the same team. They still have that level of talent. It just hasn't necessarily translated as much to the game as they probably would have liked. But like, the talent is there where if they're playing well, they can beat or compete with anybody. And if you're not playing well, they can certainly take advantage of that. So I don't, I don't think they're bad. I certainly don't think they're like, I mean, they're making majors. They're going to be at Invite. Like, they're certainly not a bad team.
Yeah, for sure. And it's probably another side of it too. Like, even if you were being fully serious in what you were saying, I think you often find a lot of players or teams, or even to some level fans and so on and so forth throughout the scene, will say things about teams, not so much behind their back, but they never really say it in a public sphere. So like you said there, because you're streaming, it is very public, your opinions and thoughts. Otherwise, it's probably the kind of things that other players and teams are saying between themselves anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, anybody who talks to me or has any kind of discussion with me outside of my stream, I'm not like just screaming at you like, like on stream. Like, on stream, it's in a way the same way I am in terms of like the villainous personality. I can just kind of flip a switch in a way and act differently than like my like, in a way, I'm not an actor, but like, it's kind of the same thing where
Yeah.
I can, the person I am when I'm just like sitting at home is not the person I am when I'm fucking just roasting everybody for, ridiculous plays and things like that.
Yeah, exactly as Jerry puts it, right? It's a persona that you put on for the purposes of entertainment, which makes total sense. Moving past that for a second as well, how much of the playoffs did you get to watch, or were you kind of pieced out once you'd done the group stage?
I would say I watched off and on a good amount of the playoffs. Just the main difficulty was here. It was very early, most of the games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I watched a little bit of it, not all of it.
Cool. And I guess we can come on to this sort of conversation that DE Mush asked about in chat earlier on as well, in terms of playstyle. And that's a point you and I wanted to talk about anyway. What do you make of Rogue? You saw them obviously play throughout group stage a little bit. You were mainly focused on your own games. You've probably seen them on and off throughout playoffs. Deserving winners? You thought the playstyle is kind of here to define the way Siege has played for a while. What do you make of their win?
I mean, I said on my stream going into the event that I thought that Rogue and Wolves, in terms of EU, were definitely the most playing on like what I thought was the meta. Like, kind of, I don't want to say reckless, but a style where they're taking a lot of chances. There's a lot of unpredictability to it. It's relying a lot more, that I think they've even said it, where they're just picking like the guns they want to play.
Yeah.
They're just relying a lot more on those gunfights and their teamwork rather than maybe some of the more strategical aspects of the game. And I mean, that's the current meta, right? Where it is gunfights. It is not necessarily as strategic right now. But if you have good teamwork and, if you're, Rogue going to that event on fire and they're hitting their shots and that kind of thing, like, yeah, they're going to win, because the way they're playing, if they're taking kind of like a 50-50 style of forcing gunfights, forcing teamwork, and all of a sudden they're hitting their shots, so that 50-50 style goes 75-25 or something like that, they're going to win a lot of rounds.
It's an interesting point about the whole gunfight thing, because before the major, when we had Lycan on the podcast, he was talking a bit about the age of gunfights is sort of dead. These days, it's about quick peeking corners. It's about pre-firing, for example. It's less about the actual skill of gunfights. Obviously, there's still skill involved in hitting the head first before they hit yours, of course. But he kind of felt that the age of gunfights have kind of sort of disappeared a little bit now for this sort of pre-fire nature. What do you think about that? Do you feel we're moving towards that as well, or do you think it is still much more very skill-based?
I think that's the opposite of what it is. I think that's probably why SSG have been terrible. I don't know how you can watch the game right now and be like, yeah, there's no gunfights. It's everybody's just quick peeking. Oh, like the game right now is literally gunfights using mechanical skill, using a lot of it is game sense, so it's not like you can be a complete idiot running around. But I mean, to me, the game right now is, I mean, we just had Spoit win the MVP of the major. What is he? He's like mechanically gifted, like prodigy. Like the mechanically gifted players are the people who are going to be the stars of the game. And what I think he could mean in that aspect is, for SSG, I've always thought of them as very methodical, not necessarily faster, and they do have good mechanical players, but I don't necessarily think of them as a team that's taking a lot of chances. So, I think they're maybe just not necessarily playing the same as these other teams. Like Rogue, FaZe, those kind of teams, like they take a lot of chances in what they're doing. They know they have the gun skill to hit the shots. They know they have the teamwork to trade each other. But that is mechanical skill. Like that is your individual skill. Like in saying that he doesn't think there's a lot of gun skill involved anymore. I mean, that's because I feel like they're not taking the chances that a lot of the other teams are.
Yeah, his whole view was basically like, look, you can see how SSG are doing on attack generally. Their defenses are awful. They know there's a problem there. But things like running Ying, bringing Amaru, going for real big, like, execute-heavy setups here means that you are removing a lot of the need for gun skill on that side of things.
Yeah, and I mean, that can work, I think we were the number 1 ranked NA team in attacking, and SSG was number 2 ranked in attacking. So, like, at least in NA, the execute style attack can work. The problem is when you go internationally, these guys aren't backing down from your thing, like from the way you're playing. So if you can't get to your execute, you can't win the round if you're an execute heavy team. And that's where I think NA is struggling a bit right now is I have this whole theory, and it's basically that NA is not as good on defense as the other regions. Like, we do not play defense like the other regions do. And because we don't play defense like the other regions do, that means our attacking, which on paper is supposed to be insane. Going into this event, I think we were the number 1 rated attacking team in the world. Like, we had the highest plant percentage, we had the highest rounds won, all of that. We go into the event, we're just getting fucking shit on attack. And it's not because we all of a sudden forgot how to attack. It's because the other teams they play defense differently. So if NA is not playing defense as high at high of a level as the other regions, then the attacking teams in NA are also not as good. We're just, we just can beat bad defenses in attacking.
Yeah.
But if you're playing FaZe or G2, where they're holding the correct things, they stand their ground, all that kind of thing, they have the good teamwork, then a lot of these execute-based attacks, you're not going to get to execute, and then what do you do?
Yeah, I forget who it was that said it to me before the event, but they said much the same, where NA is playing its own game right now, and obviously NA has only played NA for the last, stage. The whole world has essentially, right? But their style was kind of unique compared to others. They were really nervous about how it was going to compete on a global stage, and outside of XSET playing probably a slightly more aggressive style like much of the rest of the world, it has been, I guess also including timing for some of the teams that were going there, you guys included as well. It does feel like that sort of echo chamber playstyle has come back to bite a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think that's interesting about what you said about XSET, because XSET to me are one of the NA teams, or maybe the most NA team, that does not play necessarily for execute. They play to kind of just kill you. Us, we play to plant the bomb. OXG, they play to plant the bomb. Dark Zero, they play to plant the bomb. Astralis, I would say actually they're kind of on that realm too, like XSET. They just had I guess a really bad tournament. But yeah, I mean, it's not really a shock to me that XSET did the best, especially because they're kind of already using an international style of play, given that they have an international coach. And now I think, NA has a better idea of probably what we need to work on for the next stage, and we'll see if that can translate internationally. Because obviously, I do think against some teams like that execute heavy style can work, but depending on who you're playing, if it doesn't work, you need to be able to have a different plan. And I think most importantly, NA just has to figure out defense, because I think we're way behind on defense because we're not. I think NA is still thinking about defense in terms of the strategy and the, like the utility, and not just kind of bringing just guns a lot of
Yeah.
the time.
It's the big change I've seen probably in the last 12 months, because 12 months ago, NA was, well, not so much 12 months ago, NA, but obviously probably 6 months ago before we got into this horrific LNG meta, which thankfully is dying with the next patch. For the longest time, like you say, it was about the utility side of things, but even like watching FaZe a lot this major, their semi-final in Oregon against W7M, I watched that back a couple of times. Their defense is ludicrous. Like, they make you fight for every single square inch of Oregon that they wanted to get into. You drone them out, they kill a drone, then immediately strop back to a room that was nearby rather than getting right back towards site. And the amount of time they'd chew through, like a team like W7M in LATAM, I thought looked super dominant and, oppressive. Whereas against FaZe, they looked a little bit lost and nervous about where they could go without being shot in the back, right? And are you saying that's the kind of play style that you think NA's got to catch up on?
The way that I've kind of started to talk about it is, I would say right now the meta is you need to play defense like you're on attack.
Yeah.
You just need to fight them, get the numbers down. Because, like, say you turn it to a 3v3 or something, it's harder to execute in a 3v3 than it is like a 5v5.
Absolutely.
And even say it's a 2v3, right? Say you only have 2 and they have 3. If you're fighting them all over the map, they're probably going to be hard pressed on time. So even then, it's a much more clutchable position for your team. So, I kind of think the meta right now, and I've probably made it known, I'm not really a big fan of it, but the meta is, just kind of have to flip it on its head, and you're on attack on both sides, basically.
Yeah. Leon's popped up in chat and said much the same. Attacker repick made it so much harder. Why bring all this utility when you're going to die with shit guns and hollows? Just bring good guns, 1.5s. And then Captain Mr. Balas, is that why you play a lot of Alibi? To which Leon said, yep, I've got a shotgun, a 1.5, and a shield. I need nothing else to be able to hold sight. And that is kind of the way we're going with things, like you say, which brings us quite neatly on to the change with you as well, like you said. You said guns are great in the strategy right now. When you and I spoke the other day, you said, look, that's kind of the thinking behind why I've chosen to retire here, is that your specialty, and everyone has always been so complimentary of your IGLing in terms of the strategy of a team, the way things are played out, the clarity of the comms that you give to, the game is somewhat moving away from that very regimented, disciplined style, and something that arguably still disciplined, but a bit more chaotically so. And you said to me the other day, you don't really feel like that fits your style anymore, right?
Yeah, I would say that it's not even that I don't understand the meta or like how to play the current meta. It's just like, if the meta right now is to not plant the bomb as much and to run around and take gunfights, I'm probably the worst player at taking gunfights. I might be the smartest player at other things, but the worst at something. But if the thing I'm the worst at is now how the game is played, I just don't really want to play. Like,
yeah,
the thing that I love about Siege, and the thing that, made me able to play for so long, I think, is the strategy aspect of the game. And that I felt like for the majority of the time I could outthink you or outprepare you or, make reads on you. But I don't necessarily think I can, or I don't know that I wouldn't say I can't do it, but it's just like, if the game is just running around picking the best guns and like trying to fight everyone, I don't really see a ton of strategy in that anymore. Like, there's some strategy, sure, obviously, but it's really dropping the strategical FPS side, in my opinion, and just going straight FPS. And with attacker repick, I think that really removed a lot of the need for an IGL if you just have takes that you know what you're doing and you have guys on your team who can kind of shot call off of that and just, change as you need to go. I just, I just think the game is not at a point where I enjoy it anymore, because the reason I enjoyed it in the first place is the strategical side of it. and I don't see that being a huge focus of the game right now. Now, maybe it'll return, metas change, but I'm not going to return. But like right now, it's just not a game where I think the strategic aspect of it is that important.
You've basically like 80% answered my question, but I was going to ask you very bluntly, do you hate the meta as it is right now? Do you find it enjoyable at all to even watch rather than just play? Or is it genuinely you think it's just bad for the game?
I think it's bad for the game. So actually there's two sides of this. I do not like it, and I think it is bad for the game. The reason that Rainbow Six Siege is such a popular game and has lasted so long is because it is so unique with the strategical FPS side of it. It's the only game like that. If they're going away from the strategical side of it and trying to just turn it into a shooter, let's be honest, there are just better shooters than Rainbow Six Siege. Just play CS:GO, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there are better just FPSs. Now, the other side of this would be from a viewer perspective, it's for most viewers, for the guys that really love comp, they probably feel differently about it. But for the casual viewer, you're watching people run around, you're watching a lot more gunfights and that kind of thing. It's faster, and that's probably more enjoyable to watch. I think this last major had improved viewership. I don't know if it's because of the meta or just it so happened that big orgs happen to make deep runs in the tournament. But I am curious to see what this game is going to look like in 8 months if it continues down this road of removing a lot of the tactical side of it and just kind of sticking with the, just run and gun play style. I think it's funner to watch. I don't think it's as fun to play if you're somebody who is like more of an old school kind of thinking.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I guess to put a question to that, Mr. Ubisoft come along and say, Seth, here's the bag. We want you to become a be lead designer on Rainbow Six Siege. What changes would you make?
I think you need to go back more towards the middle. Like, I feel like right now we're far away from the strategy, the utility kind of side of it. I think I like the ability to play fast. I like the ability to bring a bunch of different operators and everything, because that is tactical to me. I just would like it more towards the middle. So you do have to put more thought to it than let's just bring the best guns and let's just go fight them. I just want some sort of strategical aspect to it other than we'll have Alibi in sight. He can make some holes. Let's bring Oryx on the roam. He can make some holes. Everybody else, let's bring Malusi so they can't rush sight. Everybody else, pick whatever you want.
Yeah.
And I just would like it more towards the middle, so you have to put a little bit more thought into it than that.
Makes sense. I guess there's a question towards you. Do you think part of that has come from the introduction of a number of things at once that made attacking very oppressive? The number of nades that we've got, attacker repick, for example. And do you think that's now somewhat being handled by the change to recoil, the number of nades being taken out of the game, LMGs finally being put in the gutter, for example? Do you think that sort of then starts to give a lean, especially with the introduction of Grim, back towards a more defensive playstyle where defenders can just look to play around utility instead?
I don't think that Grim is. I mean, we'll see. Right now, I don't think it's going to be like anything game changing. The frag thing is kind of interesting. Obviously, they're removing a lot of frags, but at the same time, they also like reduce the radius for it to like kill you through the floor now.
Yeah.
So like they removed it and nerfed it at the same time,
which is really dangerous.
Yeah, and sure, like so LMGs are harder, but from what I've seen, they're still pretty good. They added a 1.5s to a lot of guns. Finka is still going to be played. You could literally just use the spear. It's still going to have the HP. They didn't nerf that ability at all, which to me is like, I think that's the bigger issue with Finka more than obviously the LMG is like broken and that's ridiculous, but the whole operator is broken. It wasn't just the gun. And then now from what I've seen, R4C seems like it's back, except now you can have angled. Zofia AR seems like it's back if you want to run the AR.
Yeah.
Ace now has a 1.5. That improves Ace, honestly. Like, Buck has a gun now. So to me, it's just going more and more attacker sided. Personally, like these changes, we have EMP grenades now. So what's the point of even running denial? It's just making it more and more attacker sided. So what does that do to the defense? Well, we can't sit in sight and let them EMP stuff. We can't sit in sight and have to fight a Zofia AR, Finka, Ash, a 1.5 Ace. What do we have to do? We just have to let's all take 1.5s and fight them. You can't let them get to that point. You may as well lose the game fighting them around the map.
I've got an interesting one for you here as well then, because obviously everyone's, crying out saying, look, defenders need some help here. Attacking is super oppressive. They've got Finker ensures you're going into a gunfight with more HP. Mark 14s, for example, can't kill you in as few shots as they used to. All these kind of things working against them. But then you go back and look at the stats from the major, and every single map, bar 2, Border and Cafe, are still defender leaning overall in terms of win rates. So do you think maybe more of it's like an artificial feeling, or do you genuinely feel like, no, this is generally an attacker-leaning game, and teams just couldn't attack at the major? What's your take?
Well, I think NA as a whole really struggled attacking at the major outside of XSET, so that probably didn't help it. And honestly, I think LATAM, Rogue, those kind of teams, they were just, taking that style of just fight them. Don't let them get to execute, run around and pick guns. And I mean, I guess that's the meta, but obviously like I've been saying, it's not really a meta that I think is good for Rainbow, because this is a tactical shooter. If the tactics are now, let's just take guns and fight them, because if they get to sight, we lose no matter what, then it's not really tactical.
Yeah, I'll take your point. In that case, then, let's talk about the patch. Now, obviously, we had the reveal, which was then followed by the designer notes that included a number of things that we weren't aware of from the reveal, such as Gon 6s being taken away, nades being taken away, gadgets being moved over to different operators, well, gadgets, secondary utility. You guys have been scrimming a little bit. I've already spoken to a couple of teams here in Europe who have been playing on it. A couple have said Ash Sophia is back. It's the thing. The R4C is great. Sophia doesn't feel bad either. And I'm just like, please don't let us go back towards that meta, because it was the most brain-numbing thing I think I've ever seen. But what I would like to do is have a look through the patch notes as well and have a talk through those. So I will jump scenes. They're up on my screen, which everyone should be able to see. So let's start at the very, very top on this front, right? Ignoring the fact that we have Monty, Clash, and Carly up there in win rate because of the whole cheating problem, which hopefully should get sorted soon. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Ubisoft. Outside of that, looking down towards actual balancing, talk to me about your thoughts so far on the whole weapon recall thing. Have you guys had a chance to play around with that much inside of scrims, for example? What is your team saying about it? Just share your general thoughts.
I honestly feel like on the majority of guns, recoil has gotten easier. Obviously on LMGs, I think it's a little harder, but the LMG recoil is still pretty good for like 25, 30 bullets, and then it goes just wonky. But like, this maybe is more effective like in ranked, but a pro player most of the time is not going to need like 50 bullets to kill somebody. So I think the recoils are kind of easier, and now you're throwing like angled onto I posted a video on Twitter, like Jaeger angled is like a laser beam. Ash angled is very playable. I haven't really messed around with all of the guns, but I personally feel like a lot of the recoils have gotten easier, and now you have the option to run angled with it.
It's going to be really spicy to see again. That's probably why Doki is so excited about Ash being a thing again. What about the attachments themselves? Have you seen much about those? Well, I know Ubi probably, when was it last year? Was it SI last year? They were talking about trying to make attachments much clearer in what they actually did and try and bring them all more in line with each other. I don't know if this has really made a big change yet. I haven't had a chance to play around with them myself, but they were really stressing the point of let's try and make sure that every single one feels impactful and has a use case. Arguably the biggest change of the bunch is the suppressor, right? With the damage reduction being removed. A few now saying, that's it. We're going into the age of suppression. Like, what do you think?
I mean, I don't really see the point of running suppressing. This isn't Tarkov. Like, most of the fights you're going to take, you're either shooting somebody in the back, so it doesn't matter, or you're just head on with them. So, you're not like hiding out in a bush. Maybe I think suppressor is good on like knock and things like that potentially, or if you're like, I just don't think suppressor is that great, honestly. I feel like it'd be more useful on defense and attack too, just because if you're like ratting around.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, some of these changes are certainly interesting. They removed Frost 1.5 because they said it was broken. Now they gave Frost the 1.5 back, and Frost also has, you can put flash on it with a vert grip now. Like, sure, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah. I know many held the thought for the longest time that 1.5 was sort of the go-to scope, and now obviously everyone that had a scope above a 1.5 can now have a 1.5 because the whole philosophy is you have every scope available to you that's below the one you've been given at the very top level. Outside of the Frost, that any of the sort of jump to you and going, oh, okay, these are now a little bit ridiculous.
I mean, Zofia having a 1.5, I think is going to be very interesting. It seems like they have unnerfed that gun. And obviously, when it was played, it was arguably the most lethal entry player. And, everybody loves the 1.5. I think that's something to look at. Thermite having a 1.5 is kind of interesting. Ace as well. Like, those are... I think people underrate the Thermite gun a little bit, but the 5.56 is, like, a very good gun. Now has a 1.5, so you can maybe get a little more mobile with it. Abana has a 2x now. A Lion having a 1.5, that's a laser beam.
Yeah.
Like, there's, they gave the Spear a 1.5 on Finka, so if you don't like the LMG, like, here you go, just play the Spear. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I feel like they're making the gunfighting easier with these changes. And that just seems to be the general direction of the game, is like encouraging gunfights, trying to make it easier to fight. And if that's the direction they're going, that's fine. But
yeah,
we'll see where this takes the meta.
It kind of pulls us back to that whole conversation earlier about, at the end of the day, a lot of people play Siege because it is a tactical game. It's not another Call of Duty. It's not another CSGO. It is more focused on the surrounding elements. Do you still think there's a world where maybe those that have been in the game for so long, people like yourself as well, and really developed a love for the strategy and the tactical side of the game, will maybe see it as it's completely disappearing, when in reality, for the layman, for the casual player, they'll still see, oh, cool, I can still reinforce walls. We still have to burn through ADSs. We still have to do A, B, C, D,
I mean,
E,
most
F, G
people
to
don't
win
even
a
play
round.
Jaeger anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, right. Ramaya's kind of getting banned out, and then Jaeger's being ignored. We actually saw that a lot in the final, where Rogue or FaZe didn't really bring any of them to it. Some of the rounds.
I mean, if you think about it now, with them nerfing nades, a lot of the operators not having nades, do you even need to run Jaeger or Wamai?
That's very true.
I feel like you could just run around. Like, if you're gonna get naded through the floor anyway, what do you need those for?
Yeah,
you may as well
change and run it out.
Take a Oryx 1.5.
Yeah, but it's kind of go back to that point. Do you still think there's still a world where many will still see, hey, it's still got a tactical gameplay in it, even if those that were really heavily invested in it at the pro level think it's going almost completely?
I think there will be some people who still try to play it tactically, and there will be some people who don't. And I think the people who play it tactically for this current version of the game are probably playing it wrong.
Fair enough. Okay, let's take a look then at some gadgets as well. EMP Impact Grenade. Does that completely kill Thatcher? Yes or no?
I wouldn't say it completely kills Thatcher. What it may do is kill Cade. Because they removed the 1.5 from AUG, and then Cade's main strength to me is that it can block hatches. But now if you could just run these operators and get the Cade off the hatch, why would you run Cade?
You have to drone it out first, I guess, is one side of it, right? Because the radius is so small compared to what Thatcher's was.
But it's a hat. Like, I'm not talking about the walls. I don't, necessarily. I'm just thinking in terms of Cade's main strength to me is it can stop you from getting a hatch or make it difficult to get a hatch. The radius on that will cover the hatch. So,
yeah, imagine Oregon basement though, right? When you put it on the other side of the wall, or maybe in bank basement, you're sticking it to a point where it's off to the side of the hatch. You think about Cafe as well, where you don't always see the electrical placed on the hatch itself. It's just off to the side. I don't know if the EMP is going to be able to get that full radius.
Yeah, I guess that'd be something you have to test. But then at the other the other spectrum of this is I believe Maverick still has nades.
Hmm.
So I mean, Mav is going to
No,
be
I think he
ran.
lost them.
Did he?
I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah, because I said I was going to stop
Okay.
playing him as a result.
That
there
I
are
mean,
only 4 operators in the game that now have nades.
well, Mav losing nades I actually think is a pretty good change because then you have to actually bring thought into if you even want to run Mav.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, again, it's just to me it just helps attack. Obviously, like at the end of the day, it's just something that's going to help attack.
Hmm. I think it's insane when I think about the whole nade side of things. I do agree with you. At a time when like attackers are seen as being so strong, when you've got Finker that's running Riot, for example, given the ability to get through walls or any kind of utility that's intended to slow you down even quicker is a bad idea. Which is why I'm kind of quietly hopeful that taking away things like frags and nerfing LMGs a little bit will help a little bit. But on the frag nade change itself, obviously we saw a small one coming in where the range got reduced slightly and the damage curve was also altered. It was very, very slight, but from what I understand, it's intended to reduce the damage that you take when you're at the edges of these nades, right? So to kill someone, you have to basically hit them now almost completely directly on for them to die through the floor, which kind of didn't work half the time anyway. The number of times I've seen players get left on like 10 HP as a result of a nade is ridiculous.
Well, I think the thing that's not being talked about too is like if they're giving these operators flashes, remember they had to nerf Ashe because Ashe could just flash for himself or herself and then just run in a room. Finka could just flash for themselves and just run at you now. So like you're removing some of the lethality of it, but now you're giving operators more of an ability to just kind of push things on their own.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So I think it goes like both ways.
It's going to be really interesting. And what do you think about nades being taken away from all but 4 operators? Like I said, I think it was Iana, Glaz, Sledge, and Nook still have them.
I think it's interesting to nerf the radius of them and then remove them from a lot of operators. And when we're in a meta where I feel like we're very rarely seeing, or not very rarely, but you're not seeing a ton of Jaeger, you're not seeing a ton of Wamai. You know, they removed the 1.5 from Wamai now. Like, I feel like you're just going to see teams just not running any kind of denial in that aspect. Like, I think you just don't run Jaeger, you don't run Wamai. You just, again, kind of just take more guns.
And just keep on laughing your way through with those. One thing pointed out by Chukom in chat, actually, Finker can flash you now, and arguably herself, and with the boost, remove the blind anyway, and just carry on, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, personally, I think you just don't run Jaeger, you don't run Warden, or sorry, you don't run Wamai, maybe you just run Warden to make up for the lack of ADSs or something. Warden has a really good gun, it can bring you shields or a C4. You know, it negates smokes as well. Again, I think it's just going away from necessarily the kind of utility aspect of things.
Yeah. This change was targeted towards casuals, but I guess assessing something and saying it's only ever going to affect casual is one thing. The reality is another. Hard breach charges, activation time down to 4 seconds from 5. Any impact at our level, you feel?
No, I don't think so.
Nah. It's kind of at a spot where I think it's just timing up nicely with the, like they say it there themselves, to be fair, it times up nicely with the impact EMP, just to make sure you're not scrambling for a bit of time because having to deploy it itself, get in position to put it down, before you know it, you can run out of time and it can sting you if there's an electric on the other side. Fuse as well. Drilling time's gone down a little bit. Apparently this is being targeted for top ranked. Drilling time down to 2 seconds from 3. You can see the trail a little bit better, and he also has smoke grenades now as a third gadget. We've seen a little bit of niche fuse play, especially around things like Clubhouse Basement. Do you think we see him any more now, especially now he's one of the only ops with nades left?
I don't think you'll necessarily see. I mean, to be honest, now that he has, since he has nades, I think you could see him a bit more. I don't think you'll see him a bit more because of the changes to his utility. I think you could see him a bit more because he's AK-12 or LMG and nades. But I do think if we're going under the assumption that teams run less denial, I think Fuse could be good in terms of like an initial clear. Like say, for example, let's just say you go Clubhouse Cash Wall, teams just don't run denial, you throw a Fuse on the wall. If they're running any kind of Malusi, any kind of close ADSs, anything like that, you just immediately clear everything there. So I think that could potentially be something. But yeah, I think if you see an increase in fuse, it's going to be because of the nades, not because of the changes to the
gadget.
I guess to the ability. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Carly, I think, is a really interesting operator. She's got a couple of changes here that don't feel super significant, but it almost feels like there's a point where with just a couple of tweaks, she would just be flat out busted in this game. Like, I think it was Kino who said something like, honestly, if they changed it so she didn't do 90 damage on an arm shot and instead could down people, everyone would run her. It would basically be like having an AWP inside Siege, and it would just be so overpowered. What they've done here is make a couple of changes where they've taken down the recoil, and they've increased the recovery time afterwards as well. But she now has 4 charges of a gadget rather than 3. Any impact you feel at top level?
What does a recoil change do to a sniper rifle?
Really nothing, right?
Who's like sitting there just like ripping it? That's like it's like, like okay. I think they're dead already anyway.
One shot should be enough, right?
Yeah.
And Glad's got his Claymore as a 3rd gadget, which is entirely for casual. Now we get into the really spicy ones. Capitao gets a Gon 6, and so does Buck. What do you think about that?
I think Buck having a Gon 6 is you'll see an increase in Buck there. I think you know, the Capitao thing is nice. I don't think you'll see too much more Capitao. I feel like Capitao is very map dependent. Like, it's a good Oregon pick, I think. Or sorry, it can be a good Oregon pick. It can be like a good clubhouse pick. I think a lot of the time it's just not really that useful. There's just better operators. The Buck having the Gon 6, I think you'll see a lot more Buck play probably, just because you know, Buck is kind of an operator where they are very unique in that it does have the ability to apply vertical pressure either way. So that is, you know, and it has a shotgun. You know, it's just, it used to be a broken operator until they removed nades away from it.
Yeah.
I don't think giving the Gon back to it is necessarily going to just like all of a sudden make it crazy again, but I think you'll see an uptick in the play of it.
What about Iana having a Gon 6 taken away? Dead in the water or still relevant?
Yana's going to be very interesting to me because Yana is definite. So Yana's gun is one of the best guns, especially on land. It's very high damage. And Yana's, you know, obviously has the ability to kind of clear Rooney gates, drone for themselves a little bit. But not only did they remove the Gon, which is important, they removed grenades from Yana, and they removed the 1.5 from Yana.
No, she's still got nades.
Does she?
Yeah, she's one of only 4 ops now. So there was.
I thought she has smokes.
No, she has nades still. It was Finker who lost frags and got smokes instead. Otherwise, they would have completely gutted Iana, right?
Yeah,
so Iana keeps the nades.
Okay, I thought Yana lost nades. I mean, I think Yana with nades, it's still going to be a good operator, but I do think they hard hit Yana. Losing the Gon and losing the 1.5. Yeah, she did always have smokes. I think I was thinking a different operator.
Yeah.
But I think Yana will still be played, but like I said earlier, if Ashe and Zoe are back, I feel like you probably would maybe even run them over Yana, unless you really want nades.
Well, it was it's interesting because Wolves, so Shinker, who plays for Wolves, actually used to run, or still does actually throughout the major, he did it as well. He runs Iana as a more supportive operator and leaving his entries to go and play other ops, things like the Finker obviously being there as well, but they pick something else up alongside it. So maybe a world where she moves to be a little more supportive, still can do quite a lot with the
I think you could just play Finka support. Because if you're going to run,
True.
so if we're saying that Zoe and Ashe are going to be like heavily played operators again, Finka is like the perfect support operator. You're like a medic.
Yeah. Choose them up.
I think it's going to be interesting. I think there's a lot of options now for fraggers. If you can go Yana, Finka, Ashe, Zoe, you know, Knock is a highly played op.
Have Buck as the 5th man to bring along the hard breach gadgets. Like,
yeah, we're just going to have no hard breach. Who needs to open a wall if you'd kill everyone?
I was joking about this a little bit yesterday when I was speaking to someone. I was just saying there's probably a world here where you don't see hard breaches on most maps anymore.
I think you could get away with it for a decent amount of maps. Obviously, some of them would be impossible, but like you could just run Ace 1.5. It's essentially a fragger anyway. Ace 1.5 and then 4 fraggers. Like, okay, good luck.
Just laughing. Yeah, just make the problem worse. Time will tell.
Yeah.
What about Finca? Are you saying she's still very relevant, of course, but with her losing the frags, does it really damage it all that much when you pair up things like the LMG recoil going up? Or do you think, like you said earlier with the spear, she's still as relevant as ever?
I think it'll still be the most played operator probably. Um, the nerf to the recoil isn't anything like that, just makes it unplayable. And even if you don't like the LMG, you could just play the spear, which is a very good gun. And it has a 1.5, I believe. It not having frags is kind of irrelevant because you can just run flashbangs on it. So essentially, it could turn into Ash or like a clearing operator, like you mentioned, maybe more supportive, and it can still heal everybody on the team. So I mean, I maybe some people just say they don't like Fink anymore, but Fink is still, in my opinion, going to be played a lot.
Still right up there, fair. We spoke about Mav and we spoke about Buck already as well, but overall, I think the reduction nades arguably for me is the most interesting because we've been in the meta for so long where teams would just run 6, like G2 I think in the quarterfinal ran 8 nades in a few of their rounds as well. You just see so many that I think it's probably arguably a blessing to get out of this phase that you had in so many rounds where for 60 seconds basically attackers would go fishing below trying to find something, and it was like, okay, I guess we wait and see if they get anything, and if they don't, then we know they're kind of in the shit because they've got no other utility, right?
Oh, I think for sure it's going to be interesting how it plays out, because think of how many like it was a big complaint from pros of how many people were dying through the floor or grenades that weren't even within the radius of like where you think they should have died.
Yeah.
They nerfed the radius of it and they removed a lot of grenades. So, you know, if you're one of those teams that was getting a couple of kills a game off of these nades, you have to go kind of a different way about clearing things now, which will probably be interesting to see.
I'm really excited for stage 3. I just hope it's not another attackers run over defenders for the most part shit show, but time will tell. With all that done, we've gone through the patch, we've gone through the meta a little bit, we've spoken about the state of the game and how you're not the biggest fan, but obviously hope to see changes in the next 12 months or so. Let's talk a bit about the future. You announced a couple of days ago that last night, was it last night or 2 days ago? It was last night, right?
2 days ago, I think.
It's recent history.
Time flies when you're having fun, honestly.
Already having that much fun. But that's relevant. You've become the general manager for the Soniqs. There are many who will probably have no idea what a general manager's role is in an esports team like the Soniqs. Talk to us about the role. What are your responsibilities for Soniqs? How much oversight do you now have? What does the next 12 months look like for you?
Yeah, as Leon said in chat, I'm the out-of-game leader now. So essentially, for all of the Soniqs teams, it is my responsibility, or I guess I would say it is what I feel like is my duty, to try to ensure that they all can be the best versions of themselves they can be. In a way, in a way, I would just say I'm the person who all the players are going to go to for things they need. I'm the person who's going to be final call on like a lot of roster changes and that kind of thing. In my mind, I'm the person who's responsible for turning, if we have losing teams into winning teams, and for keeping our winning teams to continue winning. And, with that also comes with, dealing with contracts for players, that sort of thing. But essentially, I'm just in charge of all of our teams and ensuring that we have teams that, like I said in my announcement, that our players can be happy to play for, and our fans can be happy to root for.
What excites you the most about it? Like, what new aspect of your role now that you wouldn't have had before as Captain IGL of Soniqs itself, the team, obviously? What is it you're most excited about in the general manager role?
I mean, it's obviously a new challenge for me. I would say I have always kind of had the personality, I guess, of being more of a like leadership or like that kind of person. On any team I've ever been on for 15 years, I've been the captain. I've been the person kind of, in a way, calling the shots for what's going on. So now this is just translating what I think is like my skill set into trying to help build all of our teams and help guide them into what I think are going to be, ways that our teams can improve or sustain success.
So lots to look forward to, but looking back, do you feel at all sad that you'll never play? Well, I say never right now. That could very well change at some point in the future. But as far as the plan is now, that you won't play a game of Siege again on a stage?
No, not really. To be honest, I would have retired after Invitational, but the team asked me to continue playing. And then after stage 1, obviously we had a pretty poor stage, and I didn't think there were good options out there. So I think the timing was right for this. Of course, I'll miss competing, but one, I'm not going to come back and play unless some freak thing happens where we just have to have a player. Like that will literally be the only way I come back and play. But yeah, no, I'm older than probably I think every player in pro right now for Siege. I just felt like it was time to move on to the next career path for me, as I do obviously want to continue to be in esports, and getting this role for the organization that means a lot to me. I was obviously in a way like a dream come true kind of thing.
It's like Arson popped up in chat. Every player is 18, Supr is 19, right?
Yeah, if you're older than me, you can't be on the team.
So, hopes and dreams for the next 18 months. What would make this new role for you a success? What do you want to see the team achieve for you to say that has been the success I was looking for?
I would like to improve the teams that we have that are struggling a bit. So I'd just like to see some general improvements there. I would like our Rainbow Six Siege team to continue the success we've had or even improve on that. And, obviously, as I go on, I'll get more comfortable with the role, because some of it is going to be learning experiences for me. So in 18 months, I just hope I'm very comfortable with what's going on, and that I feel like I've helped improve or put teams on the track for improvement.
Interesting question from a guy called Titan in chat. Would you say you're going to spend more time watching Challenger League and FPL to scout players?
To be honest, as somebody who will be in charge of all of the teams, I'm not necessarily going to have the time to just focus on Rainbow Six. Obviously, right now, I'm very dialed in on Rainbow Six. I know a ton about Rainbow Six. There's probably nothing you could ask me or about any player that's relevant that I can't answer for you. Over time, that will probably fade, because my interest is going to be spread across multiple games. It's not just going to be Rainbow Six focus. Right now, I'm literally the foremost expert in Rainbow Six. Going forward, the Soniqs right now, I believe we're in 5 games. I have to spread that knowledge out to different games and focus on what can help improve these other teams. So probably I will never know more about Rainbow Six than I do right now.
And that kind of begs the question of how does the relationship work with Lauren then moving forwards? Because obviously she's sitting there as coach, and there's someone else behind the scenes, right? I don't remember the name that you mentioned the other day.
So obviously Lauren is the coach, and the Soniqs do not scrim a lot of T1 teams, so we're always noticing T2 players and that kind of thing. And then obviously Joe, who is the former coach of the Soniqs, heads an analytics department for the team.
He's doing analytics, right?
Yeah, and so he obviously is able to provide information that helps us evaluate players more in depthly. And I believe that combination can help us navigate any potential roster changes if they're ever needed. Which obviously I'm hopeful that the team can just keep the roster we have and not have to worry about that.
What other games is Soniqs in, actually? I didn't realize I didn't ask the question. What are the other 4 games they're in?
So we are in Rocket League, we are in PUBG, we're in Valorant, and we have a WoW guild team.
Oh, right. The WoW guild's kind of cool. I always found that really interesting, because I never really played WoW. I feel like I missed out on a whole childhood by not being a WoW player.
I've actually never played it either. And with the Dota team. We actually have just signed a Dota team, actually.
Nice. So it's getting big. Nice. Yeah, I always for WoW, I'd tune in and watch the raids, but I'd be like, I have no fucking idea what's going on. It's amazing, but it's also really interesting seeing all these guilds sort of scramble for that race to world first, and that's really fun.
I just watch it and I have no idea what's going on. I can't watch it. It's like, get it. Yeah.
Yeah, just like, woo, I guess we did it right, guys. Yeah, so chain of command as well. Lauren reports into you now, I guess, is the general idea is how this is going to work.
Yeah, so all the coaches will report to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously Darren, who was the former general manager, he's now the CEO. So
Right.
he's who I would report to.
Got it. And is he kind of taken over someone's spot that was there before, or is it just a new role that's been created for him to step into?
I don't really think so. I think they just kind of they think Darren's obviously done a very good job building the Sonics over the last few years.
Hmm.
And I think it was just rewarding him for how good of a job he's done. And obviously, as a CEO, he's now dealing with, very high level things, sponsors, all that kind of thing, the money aspect of the organization.
Yeah.
So he's not necessarily going to have the time to do that and still be the general manager, which is where, I kind of fill that gap.
Right. I see why you're so excited about it now as well. Yeah, it really makes good sense. Awesome. And focusing back on Siege for a second, because I know obviously in your world now it's starting to expand beyond just Siege. Roster Mania's really kicked off already in the last 2 or 3 days. I think everyone's seen talk on Reddit, Twitter, for example, of Gunner coming in. Most have heard that one. But yesterday I saw a little bit of chatter about Yeti being dropped for Geo or something. Now, you might just want to say, I don't want to talk about it, if that's even true or not. I think all of us saw Geo's spaceship gift that he posted up as well. Was that a ruse for him to come to Sonics, or what's your take on what's going on right now? Because I know he seems to be in a weird space.
I would say in any regards to roster changes involving the Sonics or any of our players, that will be announced. The roster lock I think is on the 4th.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just say any kind of roster changes in that regard would be announced within that time period, maybe the next week or two. But I will just say to our fans, I think our fans will be very happy with the roster we bring to stage 3 and probably be confident that it's the best roster we've ever fielded in Siege.
Strong claims, strong claims. That makes it sound like you're trying to get Sonics on the path to win the next major.
I would say
do a rogue. Just bring in some young gunner and just do a run for the top. Do a rogue.
I would just say the thing to know about me is winning comes second to none. Relationships I have with players, relationships I have with people. If I think there is a way that it's going to help the team win, I will choose winning.
And in a way, I guess it's like why you say you step back yourself is because you feel you aren't best fit right now to be a player on a team that can play in the current meta, right?
Even in regards to myself, I have always done what I thought is best to help the team win. I felt like I was no longer the best option to win, so I left the team.
I admire that. That's really, really good commitment to the org and the team. So one little side piece of that. Desk. Many have been calling for it. What was the dream desk that others were talking about? It was you, Thomas, and someone. They were saying it would be an Unreal desk. Would you consider doing a desk at any point in the future?
Well, Unreal would definitely be a word for that desk. But if I was contacted, I would certainly. I mean, for those who don't know, I literally went to school for broadcast journalism. I went to college for it. Yeah, so I have a master's degree in broadcast journalism. So
that's why you're so good at talking shit on stream. Then I understand.
It may be why I'm a bit of an entertainer, but I would 100% be interested in that. Obviously, my job with the Sonics comes first. So if it's something that could work with me being the general manager for Sonics, I would 100% be willing to be on a desk of some sorts. But obviously, that is not something that is up to me.
Okay. That wasn't the question I had that I've already completely gone out of my mind. Oh, streaming was the one. I've got big trains going past my window, by the way. I'm very unfortunate to be right next to a train line, so forgive me. When it comes to streaming, obviously being a general manager is essentially a full-time role, right? What's streaming going to look like for you? Is it going to be a few hours in the evening once or twice a week? Are you still wanting to make a good run with it? Like, what's going on there?
I'm planning on still streaming relatively the same amount. To be honest, I'd never streamed like a crazy amount because obviously my schedule, like in theory, I probably will have more time as a general manager than I did as a player because I think everybody knows as a player, I was a player. I essentially was a coach. Like I did a lot of stuff as a player. Now I don't have to do that. So in theory, I probably have more time now. It's just going to be when I have that time. Because obviously as a general manager now I'm working more normalized hours. Whereas before I was sometimes able to stream in like the middle of the day and stuff. So I 100% plan to continue streaming. Probably eventually even stream a little bit more, but it's more so of finding a schedule that works for streaming with the job I have now.
Makes sense. Well, I've always really enjoyed the hyper promotional, like they were like GTA themed. They look like a nightclub kind of theme. Yeah, that like that the
Yeah.
period you had like a couple of weeks of having those. I always
Yeah.
enjoyed seeing each one coming out. They were really fucking cool.
Yeah, I made them myself. I'm crazy.
Yeah, I have zero doubt. Yeah, broadcast journalism, right? So, talk to me about your career then. To wrap things up now, because we are coming towards the close. What are the high moments, the low moments from your career that you can remember so far?
I mean, I think obviously the high moment would probably be because I did get second a few times and I won Invite Online qualifier literally in my first ever time playing. I qualified for Invite, so that was like that was pretty cool. But I would say at that moment I didn't take Siege it seriously. I was literally getting paid $500. So I would say like winning NAL championship was like a highlight for me.
That feels
Obviously,
so long ago, but it was only like 9 months ago, right?
yeah, and obviously like the very deep run we made at Invitational was awesome. It's really unfortunate that fans weren't there for it, but you know, we had I still think to this day, and this is going to be like a hot take, that if we would have been able to beat Empire in our match, I think we were up 1-0 maps, 6-5 rounds in the semifinals. We would have beat TSM because we kind of ran NA last year and probably gone to the invite finals. So that obviously that's like super hypothetical, who knows, but obviously I really enjoyed invite, and to be honest, just the group of 5 guys that we had on the team, um it was just it was a really good run for us over a year and a half. 4 majors, NAL championship, top 6 invite. That's a hell of a roster, and that team is kind of going to be the highlight for me because I was on some good teams, Rogue, Era, like we were good, but I would say I never had as much fun probably as that team.
I think it's pretty fair to say, to be honest with you as well. Although everyone's really happy that you found such a real pivotal role in the Sonics organization, the scene will feel a lot more empty without you there. Whether it's the shit talking on stream, whether it's on Twitter, the drama and fun that brings as well, or just those that really respected your skills as an IGL, it will be a real shame to not have you around anymore. So I'm hoping we get to see some fun streams still, and that we still get you talking shit every now and then and coming and taking some digs at people, because that's always very welcomed. But anything you kind of want to say to those that are here, hanging on to your every last word and want to hear what you got to say?
I won't pull an invite and just say no, but obviously I'm appreciative of all of my fans and Sonics fans. You're the reason that I'm able to do this. You're the reason the Sonics exist. And to those of you who don't like me, I would also like to thank you, because you talking about me literally gets me charms in the game. So, I might not be your favorite player. I might not be playing anymore, but I'll be around longer than your favorite player because I'm literally in the game. So appreciate the haters, appreciate the non-haters, and yeah, I am really excited for you guys to see our Siege team. I think it's kind of my first moves with the organization, and I really think you guys are going to be excited for it.
It's a real Thanos moment of just being like, I am inevitable. You can't be without me. I'm literally in the game attached to some of your guns. You can't escape me. One quick question that came from chat as well to close things out. It's more about the game balance itself. One thing that D asked was, would the game benefit at all from slowing down lean speed, for example, reducing it to about half or so, or do you think that has no real impact?
They've already nerfed that, I believe. It used to be faster, so I think that's kind of fun. Like, I don't feel like there's any problem with the movement or anything of the game. I think it's just the direction in which they're balancing it right now.
Still more to do. And someone else asked, potentially watch party other Sonics games. So if they're in a tournament at some point, you can teach us all about, I don't know, WoW raids for those that haven't played WoW, which is probably about 5 people in the whole world.
If I'm not at, especially for Siege, because I know obviously most of you are interested in Siege. If I'm not at the games, like I am planning on going to NAL games this stage, and I'll probably vlog them for those of you that, check out my YouTube vlogs. But if I'm not at the games, I will try to co-stream them and whatnot.
That'd be good fun. Real good fun. Awesome. Well, Seth, that's really all we got else to say now. We've gone through all the kind of topics we had there. You're giving us a good run through of what's next for you as well and for the team. And I'm pretty sure those diehard Sonics that are in the chat are definitely keen about those roster changes coming in. So I can't wait to see what they are either. And hopefully we see Sonics at the November Major and you will be there in tow with them, I trust, if you do make it.
Hopefully.
Fingers crossed. Well, thank you so much for coming on. No doubt we'll hear from you again, whether that's on Twitter or on stream. Time will tell. But all the best and have a good one. Hope it goes well as general manager. And I think for everyone on the scene, we all say a big thank you for everything you've done over the years, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I may be gone, but I'll be around.
Definitely won't be disappearing anytime soon. That's all there is for now, though, guys. This is the end of our second return episode of the Siege and 60 podcast. On Tuesday, so in just 6 days' time, we will be bringing on two of the winners of the major. We have Deepak and Leon, the support duo coming in from Rogue, who want to have a good chat with us as well about their journey through the major, what's next for Rogue as well. So loads to look forward to on that front as well. So do tune in. It'll be Tuesday, 8 p.m. CEST. And we'll keep this train rolling, try and get some more spicy podcasts lined up as well to talk to some interesting people throughout the scene. Seth, thanks once again. And to everyone else, thank you for watching. And I'll catch you all on Tuesday.
See you guys.